This is a story about a girl, a hospital, and a lawsuit. A story that was featured in a Netflix documentary called Take Care of Maya. A story that raises questions about medical ethics, child abuse, and the power of institutions. This is Maya's story. Maya Kowalski was a happy and healthy 9-year-old girl living in Florida. She loved to play soccer, swim, and ride her bike. But starting in the summer of 2015, she experienced severe pain in her legs. Pain that was so intense, she could barely walk or stand. Pain that had no apparent cause or cure. Her parents took her to various doctors and specialists, but none of them could find anything wrong with Maya. Maya's parents tried different medications and therapies, but nothing seemed to help. Maya's parents became increasingly desperate for answers and relief for their young daughter who was suffering for no apparent reason. Maya's parents found what they believed to be the answer in a doctor who diagnosed Maya with complex regional pain syndrome, also known as CRPS. CRPS is a rare and poorly understood condition that can cause chronic pain and hypersensitivity in one or more limbs. CRPS can be triggered by injury, infection, or surgery, but sometimes, as was apparent in Maya's case, it occurs without any particular reason. There is no definitive test or treatment for CRPS, and its causes and mechanisms are still unknown. In the heart of Tampa, Florida, there was a doctor who had a method for treatment of CRPS, but whose methods were as revolutionary as they were controversial. Enter Dr. Anthony Kirkpatrick, a pediatric anesthesiologist and pain specialist who had dedicated over 2 decades of his life to this debilitating condition. But he had a unique and controversial weapon of choice, an enigmatic and powerful anesthetic, ketamine. Dr. Kirkpatrick's audacious approach was known as ketamine coma therapy, a method that pushed the boundaries of conventional medicine and ethics. Ketamine, which is a hallucinogenic drug, has the power to plunge patients into a deep and unconscious state at higher dosages. This doctor boldly claimed that by immersing his young patients into a ketamine-induced coma for several days, he could miraculously reset their tortured nervous system and vanquish their agonizing pain. But here was the rub. Ketamine coma therapy was not approved by the FDA or any reputable medical authority. Ketamine coma therapy lacks rigorous scientific testing, evidence, and peer-reviewed studies that typically accompany such dire methods. Into this tempestuous terrain stepped Maya's parents, a family desperate for a lifeline for their young and suffering daughter. Maya's parents knew of the controversy surrounding Dr. Kirkpatrick and his unorthodox and unsanctioned approach, but they clung to the belief that he held the key to rescuing their child from a life of ceaseless agony. Maya's parents, seemingly trusting the doctor implicitly, faithfully started to follow his prescriptions. Maya's life transitioned into a surreal journey through the realms of ketamine and other hallucinogenic drugs. Her mother, a nurse, became her caretaker, administering the potent concoctions. Maya was prescribed not only ketamine, but a bewildering array of medications, including morphine. These medications were meant to alleviate her pain and prevent seizures and spasms. Dr. Kirkpatrick monitored Maya remotely through phone calls and video chats in what became a precarious balancing act between hope and despair. All the while, there was concerns that Dr. Kirkpatrick might actually be exploiting Maya as a mere guinea pig. For over a year, Maya's existence blurred into a haze of drugs, bedridden days, and torturous side effects. Hallucinations, nightmares, nausea, vomiting, weight loss, hair loss, skin ulcers, infections, and other damage punctuated her suffering. Maya, because of the severity of her treatment, was denied the joy of school, friendship, and any sort of normal childhood experience. Yet, amidst this chaos, there seemed to be fleeting moments of relief when Maya and her parents believed that the ketamine coma therapy was working. Hope flickered, Maya's love fueled by her love for her parents and their unwavering determination to save their daughter. Maya's parents drained their finances on medication and equipment and started to endure an increasingly bitter sting of criticism, judgment, and isolation from friends, family, and the community at large. But Maya's parents refused to be broken. Armed with evidence of Maya's diagnosis, prescriptions in progress, they fought tooth and nail to prove they were doing the right thing for their daughter. They staunchly asserted that they were acting in their daughter's best interest, following a legitimate medical treatment. They faced down accusations and challenging allegations, but were unwavering in the battle for justice and the medical rights of their daughter. This background controversy would ultimately reach, in its final evolution, in the form of a formidable adversary, Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital. This prestigious institution, part of the expansive Johns Hopkins health system, held a lofty reputation as a beacon of patient care, education, innovation, and philanthropy. However, beneath the veneer of excellence, Johns Hopkins carried its own shadowy baggage, a history marked and marred by scandal and controversy. One of Johns Hopkins' more controversial steps was in the employment of specific child abuse pediatricians who roamed throughout the hospital like powerful, all-encompassing figures. These specialists were formed to identify and treat child abuse and neglect, working hand in glove with law enforcement and social services. But these child abuse pediatricians' authority reached far, encompassing not only the ability to diagnose, but even to remove children from homes. As Maya's parents continued their battle for Maya's future, her parents found themselves increasingly caught in the crosshairs of an institution like none they had ever encountered before. An institution with power from the weight of prestige, controversy, and legacy, both brilliant and tarnished. When it came to Maya's case at Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital, there was one name that resonated particularly throughout the corridors: Dr. Sally Smith. Dr. Smith was the product of Ivy League education, having honed her skills at Harvard and Boston Children's Hospital. But beyond this glittering facade laid a trail of discontent. Former patients and their families had lodged lawsuits and complaints, casting shadows over what seemed at first glance to be a pristine reputation. Complaints of false accusations, wrongful removals, professional misconduct, and even illegal acts committed in the veneer of personal vendettas danced around Dr. Smith's legacy. In the dark corners of her career, Dr. Smith would enter this fray as her spotlight moment seemed to arrive when she suspected little Maya as a victim not of the disease in which she had been diagnosed, but rather a victim of medical child abuse, a sinister condition known as Munchausen by proxy. This rare and intricate form of child abuse involves a caregiver deliberately manipulating a child's illness for personal gain. Maya's journey into Dr. Smith's world began in October 2016 when she entered Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital for what at the time was a fairly routine medical examination. Dr. Smith, however, thought she saw something more and caught the scars of the ketamine chemotherapy administered by Dr. Kirkpatrick for CRPS. In Dr. Smith's mind, an alarm bell began to ring, and she decided to delve deeper. Dr. Smith scrutinized Maya's medical history, examined her physically, and consulted fellow experts. In the end, she delivered her verdict. Maya didn't suffer from CRPS or any other physical ailment. The culprit, according to her, psychological factors or parental influence resulting in medical abuse. Dr. Smith decided to raise the alarm, demanding Maya's removal from parents' care without a court order. She demanded a treatment plan that would reverse the effects of the ketamine chemotherapy while addressing Maya's psychological needs. Dr. Smith thought that she was acting in the name of justice, calling for the arrest and prosecution of Maya's parents for child abuse and neglect, adamant that Maya's parents were in fact putting their child's life and rights on the line. In Dr. Smith's eyes, she was the savior of this tale, expecting a chorus of praise and adulation. But in the end, she couldn't have been more mistaken. Neither Dr. Smith nor Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital could have foreseen the storm that would follow. Maya would hire a formidable legal team to sue both Dr. Smith and the hospital. Maya's lawyers marshaled evidence and witnesses to bolster their case, unraveling a fabric of credibility and exposing vulnerabilities of the hospital's actions. The hospital had anticipated Maya's voice, her narrative emerging as a counterpoint to what the hospital had done. Maya, for her part, would unabashedly defend her parents, accusing the doctors of treating her and the hospital of a whole and refusing to allow her to return to the home she knew. Maya's tale didn't end within the sterile confines of the hospital. It has spilled onto the public stage, capturing media attention. Documentaries were crafted and opinions stood divided, painting a canvas of uncertainty. The lawsuit between Maya Kowalski and Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital is one of the most complex and controversial cases involving medical care in recent history. It involves medical, legal, ethical, and emotional issues that are hard to resolve. This case raises questions about who has the right to decide what is best for a child, who has the authority to diagnose and treat a condition, who has responsibility to protect a child from harm, and who has the power to ultimately decide the verdict. This trial is still ongoing, and the ultimate verdict is still pending. The fate of Maya, her parents, Dr. Kilpatrick, and the hospital hangs in the balance. Who will win? Who will lose? Who will be right? Who will be wrong? And in the end, who will take care of Maya?